Welcome to the Webinar Talk Show. I'm Liz Green.
And my name is Tom Singer, and Eliz and I decided a long time ago that webinars can be better than talking heads over PowerPoint. There are so many different ways that you can showcase the brilliance of people in your association, in your company. And so we started doing these, gosh, it's been like 6-7 weeks now. We started doing these interviews in the middle of sort of the COVID crisis so that we could bring really interesting ideas and thoughts to people that we know, but also showcase why a great interview is better than just someone blabbing on.
Well, and our guest today certainly knows about a great interview. That's what she's been doing for her career, but she's also someone who helps people dig deeper and shows them how they can leverage what they do better than anybody else. I need that. How about you, Tom?
Always, always.
She's also a familiar voice. We were talking about this before she agreed to come on the show, Tom. Where have we heard her before?
So she is the voice of the U.S. Postal Service's national commercials. So when you hear that, really smart woman telling you why you should be sending things by the U.S. Postal Service, that's our guest.
Please welcome Kate Delaney.
Welcome, Kate.
Hey, what an introduction. I love it. Thank you so much.
Well, Kate, one of the things, and Eliz touched on this, is that for over 15 years now, you have had a nationally syndicated radio show at night called Kate Delaney's America Tonight. Mm-hmm. And I remember when the show was brand new, it corresponded with me releasing my first book. I didn't know who you were, but you invited me onto your show to talk about networking and how business relationships can really be fostered. And I was supposed to stay for like one segment and you kept me for two. And I always thought, she's cool. And then 15 years later, we're friends.
I know, it's crazy how things come full circle. Your book was really, really good, Tom, because you kept it simple, it was short, and boom, you nailed the message. So that really resonated with me.
Fantastic. One of the things.
Nice. Well, I remember that, and who would have known that we.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Sometimes we get our wires crossed every once in a while. But here's the thing. When I was looking at your website and looking at all of the things that you do, the thing that came to me the most was the idea influential listening, which I have to think comes from all the interviews you've done. Do you know how many interviews you've done in your career?
Yeah, I think in all the press stuff that's put out about me, they say 16,000, but actually now it's closer to probably 20,000.
That's an amazing number of interviews. I've done like 700, and I think that's a big number. So you got a big number of interviews.
It is, but you have to think about the amount of times that either I was speaking and interviewing people, so I was on stages and jumping off of stages, or I'm behind a microphone in radio, or I did television and still do. So between all those different platforms, a lot of interviews. I mean, I would do maybe 20, 25 interviews a week over the course of 25 years, and that's where you get a big number.
Yep.
So what does influential listening
could you talk to us a little bit?
I think we have a delay today. Maybe it's me.
But I think we definitely have a delay. But I was going to ask the same question. So it's like, Kate, what does influential listening mean?
Well, to become an influential listener, here's the thing, Tom and Eliz, you both know this. What happens is you get excited, you start having a conversation with somebody, whether it's business or personal, and you have things that you want to get across, and you're thinking your mind's racing, and you're trying to have this conversation, but what happens is you're not really paying attention to what the person's saying and why it's natural, because you're thinking about, oh, I'm excited, I want to get my point in, or I want to tell you about something really cool that I think connects with you. And instead, if you just take a breath and really focus on the person and listen to what they're saying, whether it's over the iPhone or the Zoom medium or any of the other platforms we use or in person, it's the same thing. So to really become an influential listener, you may have points of view, you might have something you want to get across, and that could change based on the conversation if you would just listen to what the person is saying to you. Then you'll have deeper connections, and it'll pay off for you personally, and it'll definitely pay off for you financially, because that's where people fall short.
That's fantastic to think about. But, in this day and age when there's so much going on and we're doing all of this online, it's very easy to get distracted. For example, right now I'm distracted by the dog barking. How do you, as an interviewer, stay focused so that you can do that listening? Do you have any tips for those of us who might be doing this now?
Yeah, absolutely. The number one thing, and it's really, really obvious, Eliz, is that people have so many things wherever you're sitting. You've got your papers, your other things that you're going to do, your to-do list that's out somewhere, or especially your iPhone or whatever device you have. Turn it off. If somebody's trying to get to you and offer you $1 million, the $1 million is still going to be there after that conversation. But I know it's natural, right? And people now open 2 computers, so they're talking and they're at the corner of their eye, they're seeing some messages pop up, and it happens to you, right? And if you've got a dog, I have a brand new pandemic puppy named Guinness, and Guinness is outside, or he's at, if it's important enough, he's at doggy daycare or something else. I just make sure I take care of that. Because so many of us are doing things from home, in fact, most of us, and I don't think that's necessarily going to change. Put a sign on your door. People don't think about that. Don't ring the doorbell, because maybe Amazon's coming with that important package, but they won't do it. So just make sure you put that sign out. There's some really obvious little things that you can do. And the other thing I say is that you stop and reset yourself. So before you go into that conversation, I call it a head dump. So in other words, take whatever is out of your head, like you're thinking, oh, I got to tell Tom about this great idea I have for the show we're doing. Write it down, scribble it down, or put it on your iPhone before you turn it off. And then just get back to it after you have that interview or that conversation. Just dump it out of your head. Get it out of there.
So what are some, I mean, you've done such a great job with your nationally syndicated show. What are some of the things you've learned about the types of questions to ask? How do you really open people up? Because sometimes people come on, I know this from interviews that Eliz and I have done and that I've done on my own podcasts. Sometimes people come on with their agenda, and no matter what you ask them, they want to get back to talking about the date of their release of their book or their online course or whatever. How do you get people back on track and make them go deep to the content?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, anybody who has a book, the key thing is, and it's good to let them know this, that the better, the deeper the conversation, the more people will be interested in their book. The more times you say, you can get my book on Amazon, you can get it, it's distracting, and then people are bored because they know you're self-promoting. We're smart. All of us get that. So you can even tell them ahead of time, hey, don't worry about your book. We're going to make sure everyone will know it at the end or whatever. So that's a good thing to maybe even just put the smoke signal out right away. Don't push that product so hard, because it'll naturally sell itself. And in the course of the interview, what I do is, I'll ask them questions about, most people get excited about how did they get there. So how did you get there? I mean, hey, you're the CEO of XYZ company. Let's go back to when, you were at Harvard or Princeton or community college. How did you get there? And then you can see them light up, and they go a little bit deeper for you because they start to tell you about, that's right. I started off and I had, 10 nickels in my pocket. And people like to talk, especially if you're talking about people who have done really well. They like to go back and revisit where they were, right? And I have a question I always ask. It's kind of one of my signature questions. What keeps you up at night? And then usually they always go deep on that. So you humanize it. And I think it also goes to the research. What do you know? What can you find out about the person that's not as obvious than the press release or even digging around on LinkedIn? A lot of times, if you just do that extra little push, you'll find something incredibly unique and something that also binds you perhaps to them. So because I'm a journalist and I've lived all over the place, I've lived in not every state, but I've lived in what I call every quadrant of the country. Like I lived in, California or the Southwest. I grew up in the Northeast. So we all love food. We all love to talk about food and places we've been and whatever. And for that really, really connects me with someone when I know something about where they're from or something cool in their area because they light up and they want to talk about it.
So,
Right.
Kate, let's go back to the beginning of your career. When you first became a journalist. How did you get from the early days of journalism to where you are now?
Question.
How did I get there? I knew what I wanted to do when I was in school. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, Tom, and I used to watch the news. And I was like, I want to be an anchor. I love that because I'm a curious person. I knew as a kid I was curious. I wanted to learn. And I thought being a journalist meant you get to learn. You get to meet cool people and learn new things. And that interested me from the time I was young. So I went to journalism school. And when I got out, I got a job as a television anchor, and that kicked that off, and I started to do that more. And what happened was, and how the travel and even it got even broader, is I worked with a guy who was just better than everybody else on the set. Everybody else seemed very stiff, and they were thrown to the weather person and this person, and they looked pretty and sounded good, had a good voice. But he went deeper. Like people really connected with him. His name is Nathan Roberts. And I asked Nathan one day, how'd you get so good? And he said, I did radio on the side because radio people had to fill more time, and they had to go deeper, to your question before, on interviews. They had to get to know people a little bit more because they had so much more time than on television. And that made me better when I got on camera. So immediately I got a part-time job hosting. I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I got a part-time job doing radio.
That's really smart. And I think all of us have benefited from mentors across our careers. I also know that that is something that you do, that you have mentored, both in terms of preparing people to be in the media, but also you have this whole Deal Your Own Destiny project, which I'm very interested in, because I think right now people are feeling very out of control. There's in a career that maybe was going someplace, now we're at home and maybe things aren't going quite as well as we want. What do you do with people? I love this idea of leveraging what they do better than anybody else. Tell us some about that.
Well, I think that what happens to all of us is we have blinders on. I guarantee if I had beers or a non-alcoholic beverage with either one of you, we would uncover that. What is that thing that you're not realizing that you could offer, that you really, it's hidden in the background somewhere. So there's lots of different ways to dig it out. Somebody did it with me, and that set the light bulb off for me. They did a SWOT analysis with me. What were my strengths and weaknesses, and where did I, the whole thing of where you fell short and what I could leverage better. And then I realized that I could do that with other people in a different way. And usually what I'll do, and sometimes we'll go deep, I'll have people, I'll say, write down, and it's going to take you a while, it may take weeks, every person you've ever met in your life.
Oh.
Because if you write down every person you ever met in your life that you can think of, there may be some that you forget, that triggers memories and why were you there and what were you doing? And then that also digs out even further things that you probably are good at that you haven't even thought about pulling out and using. Because you did something, I taught tennis when I was 17 and I was good at relating to people that way, or whatever it is. There's something that you're not leveraging. So there's good ways to go deeper there. And I say that now, and you're right, people are having to change, sometimes reimagine what they're doing. So I say that you got to refocus, you have to reimagine. In some cases, you have to reinvent. I think all of us have to reinvent somewhat, but some more than others. And you have to open your mind up to that. Your mind has to be in the right place. If you're stuck, I was this, I was going to go here, I had this happening, boy, you got to push that baggage out. You've got to get rid of that. And you have to refocus that energy on the possibilities, because really we're in a tremendous time in another way for innovation, for things really morphing and changing that can benefit, I think, almost everyone on the planet. And I believe you just have to open your mind to that.
But we all are very comfortable where we are, Kate. We like it here.
A comfort zone, by definition, is comfortable.
It's not going to work, Liz. If you're comfortable where you are, I have a feeling it's not going to work. So in my book, Deal Your Own Destiny, and it's still relevant, it's exactly what I say, how people went in, the very famous people that I spent time with, whether they were in sports or business, how did they make a move when they couldn't make it happen? What did they do? And what could you learn from that? And there's really three things that everyone can do that's listening to this right now. You have to commit to going all in on doing this, on refocusing, reimagining. You can't just, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it the next week, because that's more time that goes by. So you have to go all in, and you have to remember that also patience pays. How long does it take to change? How long does it take to grow something? Both of you are a prime example of that. You have an idea, you like interviewing, you see the need in the market, you start a show, and after 8 weeks, do you have 10 million followers? Maybe you do. but it takes
Not
time.
quite, no.
It takes time to grow that. It takes time. And then stack the deck. Get rid of the people, or at least don't pay attention to the people who are the naysayers, because they're definitely out there. Even the most well-intentioned people we know are a lot of those people that will tell you, why are you doing that? You don't have to do that. Why should you do that? I heard that all the time. And then I would have the people that were there for me, that were my raving fans. And that's what I call stacking your deck. Get the raving fans to keep supporting you.
So we are all members of the National Speakers Association. It's how we've all met each other over the years, besides me being on your show 15 years ago. But later on, we met through NSA. And how important do you think it is in these trying times for people to bond together in different types of organizations? I'm a big fan of trade associations, so I always say I'm a speaker, so I'm part of NSA. If I was a plumber, I would be a member of the National Plumbers Association. But in these trying times where we're so divided and our attention is so divided by all of the electronics and everything else, how important do you think it is for people to join and participate, and why is that good?
Oh, I think it's incredibly important because it goes to, again, what somebody else's knowledge or ideas or what you could also share with them. The power of that connection is, it can't be undersold. And then the possibility of collaboration. Who knows that you couldn't collaborate with somebody that you're not even thinking about? You help their business, they help your business. You just don't know. And how are you going to meet those people, especially if there's already a net there for you? So it's already designed. You just have to leap. You leap and the net will find you. Find the net. And if it's not the right net, that's okay. You took a chance, go to the next one. And I think it's more important now than ever. And as you said, we're all in the National Speakers Association. And I have to tell you, on the speaking side of my career, people would tell me, why do you need NSA? Why do you need to be in an organization like that? You already speak. People already know who you are. Well, not everyone knew who I was. Today, plenty of people don't know who I am. And it wasn't about that. It was about getting better. It was about figuring out what I could do that would be unique or different. And so many people in NSA have helped me, including they've gotten me jobs. They didn't even tell me. And they would, how wonderful is that? They wouldn't even tell me. And I would get a call and I would be referenced by somebody. And then I would years later find out. I thought the power of the organization is tremendous. And other people listening to this, you have those same organizations out there. You just have to find them.
It's very smart to make that network. I like the idea of leap and the net will find you. I'm going to try to hold on to that one. That's a challenge for sure. What are you doing for companies right now? Has your business changed with the pandemic?
It has changed. It has changed somewhat with the pandemic because I have a media company. It's Delaney Media Group. So what I did that was smart, I aligned myself with business people. I always had business mentors, and they would tell me, you have to be on your own. As long as you work for a CBS, an NBC, or whoever, it's fantastic, but they'll own you and you can only go so far. And so I decided they were right. And in my last contract, I reversed it so that I would own the show and my company would run it. So that's one thing that happened. But the other part of it is that I also went to companies, went to associations, went to people who I knew needed some help in moving the ball forward in designing podcasts for them, being the voice for them, or helping somebody else, co-hosting with somebody else to help them move along, because they might have had the knowledge, but they didn't know how to do it where it was entertaining, engaging, and they could grow their membership, or they could use it for their clients. How do you get more clients? I say it's about content. So I like to call myself a content curator. And that content, you've got this content, how do you share it so it's sexier, interesting, connects with people, and can ultimately build better relationships, and again, build more profits. So that's one of the big things that I started doing, gosh, about a year and a half ago.
So Kate, before we let you go, I have one more question for you. What keeps you up at night?
You know, I asked that question, so you're turning the tables on me.
True.
What keeps me up at night? You know what? I have so many ideas that roam around in my head, and I get so excited about them that I started doing this thing. That's what keeps me up. The exciting idea is, how can I help more people? Because I have the philanthropic side, and then how can I help more people and help myself financially? So it's both of those. And I put in all of my rooms where I could possibly, take a nap or sleep, I have pads, and I will wake up and I'll write down the idea that, think about this or whatever. And that's what keeps me up at night, because something will jar me awake of something that I'm thinking about and I'm excited about. And I realize a connection or a way to make it happen, a sponsor, an advertiser, or something.
All right. So let's say, and I'm willing to bet that this is true, there is someone out there who's like, I really need to work with Kate Delaney. How would they get a hold of you?
Of course, I have 15 websites.
Of course you do.
Yeah. How many websites can one woman have? There's a couple of different ways you can do that. You could go to dealyourown.com, or you could also go to KateDelaneySpeaker.com. That's another one.
And I know you're a big LinkedIn user as well.
Yes, LinkedIn, of course. Go to LinkedIn and hook up with me there, because then, as you said, that's kind of where you can find out things that I've done, etc.
Right.
Nice. And let her know that you heard about her here on the Webinar Talk Show.
Yes.
Hey.
Absolutely.
Hey, thank you so much for coming and sharing your brilliance with us.
I'm used to interviewing people. Can I ask you both a question?
Sure.
All right. So I'll go with Eliz first and then Tom. What do you like the best about doing this?
I think I get smarter every time we do one. There's always a little nugget that I take with me, and I guess that's like candy to me, just to pull in that little nugget of information. And plus I get to sit next to Tom virtually,
Nice.
which is nice as well.
Nice. How about you, Tom?
I'm just looking at both this show, but also all the podcasts I've done. I started my podcast 6 years ago now. I've been hosting one for an association for about a year. And so one of the things I like is being able to kind of go deeper and get people to get off that superficial level. And then with this whole video webinar talk show thing that Eliz and I started, one of the things I really like is that I feel I'm getting better as a person who interviews. I'm learning how to do this because we've done 20 of these interviews or whatever it's been. And with that, I feel that I can then serve my clients better, whether it's as sort of a virtual MC if I'm going to be interviewing people, or when we get back on live stages. One of my favorite things to do is to tell them, give your speaker 45 minutes, not an hour, and let me as the MC come interview them for 15 minutes. And when they let us, and most speakers don't, but when they do, the audience always says, that was the best part. And so I think that by doing this, I get better at that.
Nice.
And to just dive in, one more thing that I really like. So Tom, like our relationship, Tom asks the better questions. Like hands down, he's the better interviewer, but he's been doing it, like a lot more interviews than I have. I really love the behind the scenes production part. And the
Mm.
work that we do behind the scenes with, particularly the work that we're doing with the National Speakers Association, emceeing those sessions that happen twice a week. The work that we're doing to prepare our presenters and make sure that they get spotlighted in the best possible way, and the content that they really want to deliver is delivered in a way that people are excited about. That, look, now you can tell I get really jazzed about that.
That's good. That's a good partnership then, because you
Mhm.
definitely need both of those things together. That makes a much better show for sure.
And I've learned a lot, both doing the webinar talk show and the National Speakers Association's influence breakout sessions. I've learned a lot about the importance of a pre-production meeting. And I think
Mhm.
as a speaker, as a keynoter, I think I've been guilty when they're like, oh, we have a sound check the day before your speech. I think I've been like, nah, I've done this 700 times. I don't need a
Right.
sound check. But what I've realized is the sound check isn't necessarily for me. It's for the whole production
No.
team. And so one thing I've learned is that when someone wants to have an extra, little thing, my answer from now on is always going to be yes, because I see how much better it is when the speaker is willing to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, I'm thrilled that you asked me to be on, and it's good to see both of you, and thank you so much.
Well, this
Thank
was
you.
a real pleasure. And we do this twice a week, which, we get to have amazing people come on and share what they know, their own brilliance, which is wonderful. But we know for sure that it is so much more entertaining when it's an interview style, as opposed to if Kate just came on and showed her slides and droned on. I don't think she'd really do that. If she did, that would not be as interesting.
Yeah, I definitely think the other thing, to answer your question one more time, Kate, the other thing I've really enjoyed is the access to people like you who are so
Mhm.
giving of their time, their content, their information, and their hearts. I think that's been a big bonus as well. So thank you.
Of course.
Absolutely.
My pleasure once again to be on for sure.
So you can find us on webinartalkshow.com or on Facebook at Webinar Talk Show. We'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great rest of the day.